Colonel Marcus Blackwood ripped the Barrett .50 caliber sniper rifle straight from Staff Sergeant Ellie Ross's hands during the most critical military demonstration of her career. But 30 seconds later, he was writhing on the ground with a shattered wrist, while she proceeded to nail 8 impossible targets with mechanical precision that left an entire Pentagon review board speechless. This isn't just another military story about protocol violations or gender politics in the armed forces. This is the true account of how one moment of arrogance and abuse of power triggered a chain of events that would expose a multi-million-dollar weapons procurement scandal, end the career of one of the Army's most decorated officers, and prove that sometimes the deadliest weapon on a battlefield isn't the rifle itself, but the warrior who refuses to be silenced. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Staff Sergeant Ellie Ross had been handpicked for the Advanced Weapons System evaluation at Fort Braxton after 18 months of flawless performance in the Army's elite precision shooting program. Born and raised in the mountains of Wyoming, she'd been hunting elk and defending her family's remote ranch since she was 12 years old. Her natural ability with long-range firearms had caught the attention of military recruiters during a national shooting competition, leading to an accelerated enlistment and immediate assignment to specialized marksman training. What started as a way to serve her country had evolved into something far more significant. Ellie had become one of the most lethal precision shooters the military had ever produced. The evaluation at Fort Braxton was more than just another training exercise. It was a high-stakes demonstration for Pentagon officials and defense contractors worth hundreds of millions of dollars in weapons contracts. The new Barrett M107A1 .50 caliber rifle system represented the cutting edge of military technology, featuring advanced ballistic computers, smart scopes, and precision ammunition designed to extend effective sniper range beyond anything previously possible. Ellie had been selected to demonstrate the system's capabilities not just because of her shooting skills, but because her performance would directly influence procurement decisions that would shape the military's sniper capabilities for the next decade. Colonel Marcus Blackwood had built his reputation on being the Army's foremost authority on sniper weapons and tactics. A 25-year veteran with multiple combat deployments, he'd authored the current field manual on precision shooting and had been personally responsible for training dozens of elite snipers. His selection as lead evaluator for the Barrett demonstration seemed logical, even inevitable. What the Pentagon officials didn't know was that Blackwood had been secretly receiving payments from competing defense contractors who had their own weapons systems under consideration for military adoption. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The demonstration was scheduled to take place at Fort Braxton's premier long-range facility, a sprawling complex designed to test weapons systems under the most challenging conditions possible. 8 targets had been positioned at distances ranging from 800 to 2,200 meters, each presenting unique challenges, including elevation changes, wind factors, and obstacles designed to simulate real combat conditions. The final target, positioned at maximum range, was considered virtually impossible to hit even under perfect conditions. Ellie had spent the previous week studying the course, calculating wind patterns, and preparing for what she knew would be the most important shooting of her military career. The audience gathering for the demonstration represented the highest levels of military leadership and defense industry influence. Pentagon procurement officials, senior Army leadership, and executives from major defense contractors had all traveled to Fort Braxton to witness the evaluation. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The performance of both the weapons system and the shooter would influence billions of dollars in future contracts and determine which technologies would be deployed to protect American soldiers in future conflicts. Ellie arrived at the range 3 hours before the scheduled demonstration, following her established pre-shooting routine that had served her well throughout her military career. She meticulously inspected every component of the Barrett system, from the precision machine barrel to the advanced ballistic computer that would help calculate bullet trajectory under varying conditions. The rifle itself was a masterpiece of engineering, weighing nearly 30 pounds but capable of delivering devastating accuracy at distances that stretched the boundaries of what was humanly possible. Colonel Blackwood appeared an hour before the demonstration was scheduled to begin, his presence immediately commanding attention from everyone present. His reputation preceded him, and junior officers scrambled to accommodate his requests and answer his questions about the demonstration setup. But Ellie noticed something troubling in his demeanor as he approached her position, where she expected professional evaluation and constructive feedback. She saw something that looked more like skepticism and barely concealed hostility. As Ellie continued her preparation, carefully loading the specialized .50 caliber ammunition and making final adjustments to the scope settings, she became increasingly aware of Blackwood's scrutiny. His questions were sharp and challenging, focusing not on her preparation techniques or understanding of the weapon system, but on her qualifications and experience. His tone suggested that he viewed her selection for this critical demonstration as some kind of mistake that needed to be corrected before it embarrassed the Army in front of such an important audience. The tension in the air was becoming palpable as other personnel began to notice the unusual dynamic between the colonel and the sergeant. Ellie maintained her professional composure, answering Blackwood's questions respectfully while continuing her methodical preparation. But something in his expression and body language warned her that the real challenge today wouldn't be hitting distant targets under difficult conditions. The real challenge would be dealing with a superior officer who seemed determined to undermine her before she ever had a chance to prove herself. Ellie Ross's journey to this pivotal moment had been forged through years of overcoming obstacles that would have broken lesser individuals. Growing up on an isolated ranch in the Wind River Mountains of Wyoming, she'd learned to shoot out of necessity rather than sport. Wolves threatening livestock, protecting crops from elk herds, and hunting for winter meat weren't recreational activities but essential survival skills in her family's remote world. Her father, a former Marine who'd lost his leg in Desert Storm, had recognized Ellie's exceptional hand-eye coordination and natural understanding of ballistics, spending countless hours teaching her not just marksmanship, but the mental discipline required for precision shooting under pressure. When Ellie enlisted at 19, she'd shattered every marksmanship record at basic training and advanced individual training. Her drill sergeants had never encountered a recruit who could consistently place rounds within a dime-sized group at 500 meters, using standard military rifles, and her performance on advanced marksmanship tests exceeded the scores of instructors with decades of experience. But exceptional ability brought unwanted attention, and Ellie quickly learned that some senior personnel viewed her success as a threat to established hierarchies rather than an asset to be developed and utilized. Colonel Blackwood's antipathy toward Ellie had begun 6 months earlier during a routine qualification exercise where she'd outperformed his personal best score by an unprecedented margin. The public nature of her achievement, witnessed by other officers and documented in official training records, had clearly struck a nerve with the colonel who prided himself on being the Army's premier shooting instructor. What should have been cause for celebration and recognition had instead marked the beginning of a systematic campaign to undermine Ellie's confidence and derail her rapidly advancing career. The harassment had been subtle at first, disguised as additional training requirements and enhanced oversight that Blackwood claimed were necessary to ensure Ellie met the elevated standards expected of elite marksmen. Extra paperwork, additional equipment inspections, and mandatory remedial training sessions had consumed hours of her time, while serving no apparent purpose beyond demonstrating Blackwood's authority over her career progression. Other soldiers in the precision shooting program had noticed the disparate treatment, but were reluctant to challenge a colonel's decisions, especially one with Blackwood's reputation and connections. Ellie had initially tried to address the situation through proper military channels, documenting each incident and filing formal complaints when Blackwood's behavior clearly violated established protocols. But the colonel's influence within the Army's marksmanship community ran deep, and his allies in key positions had consistently dismissed her concerns as misunderstandings or personality conflicts. The message was clear: challenging Blackwood's authority, regardless of how justified the challenge might be, would not be tolerated by the institutional power structure he represented. The situation had escalated dramatically when Ellie discovered evidence suggesting that Blackwood might be involved in improper relationships with defense contractors competing for military contracts. During a training exercise involving prototype weapon systems, she'd overheard a conversation between Blackwood and a civilian contractor that included references to payments and favorable evaluations in exchange for specific recommendations. When she'd attempted to report these concerns through official channels, Blackwood had retaliated by questioning her security clearance and suggesting that she might be psychologically unfit for classified work. Ellie's teammates in the precision shooting program had provided moral support but were powerless to intervene directly without risking their own careers. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, a fellow sniper and Ellie's closest ally in the unit, had privately warned her that Blackwood was actively working to have her transferred out of the precision shooting program before she could advance to more sensitive assignments. The colonel's influence extended beyond their immediate unit, and he'd been spreading rumors about Ellie's reliability and psychological stability that threatened to poison her reputation throughout the sniper community. Despite the mounting pressure and systematic harassment, Ellie had refused to request a transfer or abandon her military ambitions. The Barrett demonstration represented the culmination of everything she'd worked toward, and she was determined not to let Blackwood's vendetta prevent her from proving her capabilities to the highest levels of military leadership. She'd intensified her training regimen, spending every available moment on the range and studying ballistics calculations until her performance reached levels that even her detractors couldn't dismiss. Blackwood's behavior had become increasingly erratic as the demonstration date approached. He'd begun appearing unexpectedly during Ellie's practice sessions, claiming to conduct surprise inspections while actually disrupting her training and undermining her confidence. His criticisms had become more personal and less related to actual performance, focusing on her age, experience, and suitability for high-stakes military operations. Other range personnel had begun to notice the pattern of harassment, but Blackwood's rank and reputation for retaliation kept most potential witnesses silent. The week before the demonstration, Ellie had received an anonymous message suggesting that she should withdraw from the evaluation for her own safety. The implied threat was subtle but unmistakable, and she'd immediately suspected Blackwood's involvement. Rather than being intimidated, the message had strengthened her resolve to see the demonstration through regardless of the personal cost. She'd learned from her father that bullies only respect strength, and backing down now would validate every aspect of Blackwood's campaign against her. Intelligence about the demonstration had reached beyond Fort Braxton, with rumors circulating throughout the military marksmanship community about the young sergeant who might be about to revolutionize long-range shooting. Several prominent military snipers had contacted Ellie privately to offer encouragement and support, recognizing that her success could advance opportunities for other non-traditional candidates in elite military programs. The pressure was immense, but it also reinforced Ellie's understanding that she was fighting for more than just her own career. Colonel Blackwood's selection as lead evaluator for the demonstration had been controversial from the beginning, with several officers questioning whether his known conflict with Ellie created an inappropriate situation. But Blackwood had lobbied aggressively for the position, claiming that his expertise and objectivity were essential for properly evaluating both the weapon system and the shooter. What he didn't reveal was his financial relationship with competing contractors who would benefit significantly if the Barrett demonstration failed to meet expectations. The morning of the demonstration dawned clear and cold at Fort Braxton, with minimal wind and excellent visibility conditions that would theoretically favor precision shooting. Ellie had arrived before sunrise, following her established routine of thorough equipment preparation and mental visualization that had served her throughout her military career. She methodically laid out every component of the Barrett system on the designated preparation table: match-grade ammunition sorted by lot number, ballistic computer, weather monitoring equipment, and the massive rifle itself, which represented the pinnacle of American sniper technology. The Barrett M107A1 was an intimidating weapon by any standard, measuring over 4 feet in length and weighing nearly 30 pounds when fully equipped. Its .50 caliber rounds could penetrate light armor and engage targets at distances exceeding 2 miles under optimal conditions. The weapon's recoil was legendary, capable of knocking inexperienced shooters off balance or causing serious injury if not properly managed. For Ellie, however, the massive rifle felt like a natural extension of her body, every control and adjustment as familiar as her own heartbeat. Pentagon officials and defense contractors began arriving 2 hours before the scheduled demonstration, their black SUVs creating an impressive convoy as they approached the range complex. Ellie could see them gathering in the observation area, their expensive suits and serious expressions underscoring the importance of what was about to unfold. Among them were generals she recognized from military publications, defense industry executives whose companies competed for billions in government contracts, and Pentagon procurement officials whose decisions would shape American military capabilities for years to come. Colonel Blackwood appeared 30 minutes before the demonstration was scheduled to begin, his arrival commanding immediate attention from all military personnel present. His dress uniform was immaculate, his bearing confident and authoritative, projecting exactly the image of professional competence that had built his reputation over more than 2 decades of military service. But Ellie noticed something different in his demeanor as he approached her position, an aggressive tension that seemed inappropriate for what should have been a routine weapons evaluation. Blackwood's initial inspection appeared professional enough, with standard questions about Ellie's preparation routine and familiarity with the Barrett system. But his tone was condescending from the beginning, treating her more like a trainee than an experienced marksman who had been specifically selected for this critical demonstration. His questions focused unnecessarily on basic concepts that any qualified sniper would understand, clearly intended to undermine her confidence rather than evaluate her readiness for the challenging shots ahead. The situation began to escalate when Blackwood focused his attention on Ellie's ammunition selection and ballistic calculations. He questioned her choice of bullet weight and powder charge, criticizing decisions that were well within established parameters and consistent with manufacturer recommendations. His challenges were loud enough to draw attention from nearby personnel, creating an atmosphere of doubt and tension that seemed designed to sabotage Ellie's performance before the demonstration even began. Other range personnel had begun to notice the unusual nature of Blackwood's inspection, particularly the extended duration and increasingly hostile tone of his questioning. Master Sergeant Patricia Williams, the range safety officer and a respected veteran with extensive sniper experience, positioned herself where she could observe the interaction while maintaining professional distance. Her presence served as a subtle reminder that Blackwood's behavior was being monitored, though her junior rank prevented direct intervention. Ellie maintained her composure throughout Blackwood's verbal assault, responding to his questions with professional courtesy while refusing to be drawn into an argument that could be used against her later. Her calm responses seemed to frustrate Blackwood further, leading to increasingly desperate attempts to provoke an emotional reaction that would justify removing her from the demonstration. Each exchange was witnessed by multiple personnel, creating a record of the colonel's inappropriate behavior that would prove significant in later proceedings. The confrontation reached a critical point when Blackwood claimed to have identified a safety violation with Ellie's rifle configuration. He pointed to a standard bipod adjustment that was well within normal parameters, loudly declaring that it might create an unsafe shooting condition. Several experienced marksmen within earshot immediately recognized that his objection was technically baseless, but Blackwood's rank and authority gave weight to his words regardless of their. Ellie respectfully disagreed with Blackwood's assessment, citing specific technical manuals and safety protocols that supported her. Her response was factual, professional, and delivered with perfect military courtesy, but it clearly who wasn't accustomed to having his technical expertise questioned by subordinates. His reaction was swift and disproportionate, escalating what should have been a routine discussion into a public confrontation that drew attention from across the entire range complex. Pentagon officials in the observation area had begun to notice the extended delay and obvious tension at Ellie's shooting position.
Several high-ranking officers approached the range area to investigate, their presence adding additional pressure to an already volatile situation. Blackwood's awareness of their scrutiny seemed to intensify his determination to assert control over the situation, setting the stage for the dramatic confrontation that was about to unfold. Master Sergeant Williams attempted to defuse the situation by suggesting that any equipment concerns be resolved through normal procedures, rather than delaying the demonstration further. Her diplomatic intervention was technically appropriate but clearly intended to protect both Ellie and the integrity of the evaluation process. Blackwood's angry rejection of her suggestion revealed the personal nature of his vendetta and his willingness to sacrifice professional standards to achieve his goals. The final catalyst came when Blackwood declared that Ellie's rifle would need to be removed from the demonstration pending a complete inspection by base armor, a process that could take days and would effectively eliminate her from the evaluation. The declaration was obviously intended to end Ellie's participation without providing any opportunity for appeal or alternative resolution. As he reached for her rifle to physically remove it from the demonstration, the confrontation that had been building for months finally reached its explosive climax.
Blackwood's hand closed around the Barrett's barrel with the confidence of someone accustomed to having his authority go unquestioned, his grip tight and possessive as he prepared to physically remove the weapon from Ellie's position. The massive rifle, worth more than most people's annual salary and representing months of Ellie's preparation, was being treated like a piece of evidence in a court proceeding rather than the precision instrument it was designed to be. The colonel's face showed unmistakable satisfaction as he prepared to deliver what he clearly believed would be the decisive blow to Ellie's military career. The range had fallen completely silent as every person present recognized they were witnessing something far beyond a routine equipment inspection or safety concern. Pentagon officials in the observation area had stopped their conversations and were watching the drama unfold with obvious concern, while range personnel positioned themselves to intervene if the situation escalated further. The atmospheric tension was palpable as months of harassment and professional sabotage approached their inevitable culmination. Master Sergeant Williams stepped forward with careful diplomatic language, attempting to resolve the crisis without directly challenging Blackwood's authority or escalating the confrontation beyond salvageable limits. Her suggestion that the demonstration proceed with alternative equipment was technically reasonable but clearly intended to protect both the evaluation process and Ellie's career from Blackwood's obvious vendetta. The range safety officer's intervention represented the collective concern of experienced military personnel who recognized that something fundamentally wrong was happening. Blackwood's response to Williams' diplomatic attempt was swift and revealing, his angry dismissal exposing the personal nature of his campaign against Ellie to everyone within earshot. He accused Williams of favoritism and questioned her competence as range safety officer, attacks that were clearly intended to intimidate potential supporters and demonstrate his willingness to destroy anyone who challenged his authority. His loss of professional composure under pressure revealed the weakness beneath his authoritarian facade. General Patricia Morrison, one of the highest-ranking Pentagon officials present for the demonstration, had begun moving toward the range area as reports of the confrontation reached the observation platform. Her presence represented a potential game-changer as her authority exceeded Blackwood's and her procurement responsibilities made her opinion crucial to the weapons evaluation process. Blackwood's awareness of her approach seemed to intensify his determination to resolve the situation quickly and decisively. Ellie recognized that she had reached the moment of truth that would define not just her military career but her entire future. She could submit to Blackwood's abuse and watch years of preparation disappear, preserving her immediate safety but validating his harassment and encouraging similar treatment of other soldiers. Alternatively, she could stand up for her rights and risk everything on a single moment of defiance that could either save her career or destroy it completely. The critical decision came when Blackwood began physically lifting the Barrett away from Ellie's position, his movements deliberate and triumphant as he prepared to end her participation in the demonstration. The weapon was heavy and awkward to handle solo, requiring Blackwood to shift his grip and balance as he maneuvered it away from the shooting table. His focus on controlling the massive rifle created a momentary vulnerability that Ellie recognized from countless hours of defensive tactics training. Ellie's response was measured, professional, and devastatingly effective. Speaking loud enough for everyone present to hear, she formally requested that Blackwood provide written documentation of the specific safety violations he claimed to have identified, forcing him to either substantiate his accusations or admit that they were fabricated. The challenge was brilliantly calculated, requiring Blackwood to either escalate to formal proceedings that would invite scrutiny of his behavior or retreat and lose face before the assembled Pentagon officials. Blackwood's hesitation revealed that he hadn't expected Ellie to challenge his authority so directly or effectively. His accusations had been designed to intimidate and eliminate her without creating a formal record that could be challenged or reviewed by higher authorities. Being forced to document his claims would expose their arbitrary nature and potentially subject his own conduct to investigation, a prospect that clearly terrified him despite his outward confidence. The standoff intensified as Blackwood realized he had maneuvered himself into an impossible position. Backing down would represent a public humiliation that his ego couldn't tolerate, especially with so many senior officials watching. But proceeding with formal charges would require him to defend accusations that were clearly baseless and potentially criminal in their intent. His indecision and visible frustration revealed the weakness of his position to everyone present. General Morrison had reached the range area and was observing the confrontation with obvious displeasure, her expression making it clear that she viewed the situation as highly inappropriate regardless of its specific details. Her presence represented the highest level of military authority at the demonstration, and her opinion would carry enormous weight in any subsequent proceedings. Blackwood's awareness of her scrutiny added additional pressure to his already precarious situation. The final escalation came when Blackwood, cornered by his own overreach and unable to find a face-saving exit, chose to assert his physical dominance rather than acknowledge the weakness of his position. His decision to grab Ellie's shoulder while maintaining control of her rifle represented a clear assault that crossed every line of professional conduct and military law. The action was witnessed by dozens of people and captured on security cameras, making it impossible to deny or rationalize later. Ellie's defensive response was swift, precise, and completely justified under both military law and rules of engagement. The defensive technique she employed was standard training for all military personnel, but her execution was flawless and delivered with the mechanical precision that characterized everything she did. Blackwood's larger size and aggressive posture worked against him as Ellie used his momentum and off-balance position to devastating effect. The sound of Blackwood's wrist breaking was audible across the entire range complex, a sharp crack that cut through the morning air like a gunshot and immediately drew shocked gasps from every witness. The colonel's scream of pain and outrage followed immediately, his voice rising to a pitch that seemed impossible for someone of his size and reputation. The massive Barrett rifle clattered to the concrete as his grip failed, the precision instrument hitting the ground with a metallic crash that made everyone present wince at the potential damage to such expensive equipment. Blackwood collapsed beside his fallen weapon, clutching his mangled wrist while howling accusations of assault and demanding immediate medical attention. His face had gone pale with shock and pain, sweat beading on his forehead as the reality of his situation began to penetrate his rage-clouded thinking. The sight of the imposing colonel reduced to writhing helplessness on the ground was shocking to everyone present, completely reversing the power dynamic that had defined the confrontation just moments earlier. Ellie stood perfectly still beside her shooting position, the Barrett secure in her hands and her expression calm despite the dramatic events that had just unfolded around her. Her defensive action had been textbook perfect, using minimal force to neutralize Blackwood's assault while immediately securing her weapon to prevent further escalation. The contrast between her composure and Blackwood's emotional breakdown was stark and telling, revealing which of them possessed the mental toughness required for high-stakes military operations. Master Sergeant Williams immediately called for medical attention while moving to secure the scene and separate the involved parties, her years of experience in handling crisis situations evident in her quick and professional response. She positioned herself between Ellie and the fallen colonel while directing other range personnel to document the incident and preserve evidence for the investigation that would inevitably follow. Her actions demonstrated the kind of leadership under pressure that marked true military professionals. General Morrison reached the scene within seconds of Blackwood's collapse, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding as she assessed the situation and began gathering information from witnesses. Her first priority was ensuring that medical attention reached the injured colonel, but her questions to range personnel made it clear that she was also focused on understanding exactly what had precipitated the confrontation. Her presence brought immediate order to the chaotic scene while ensuring that proper procedures would be followed. Pentagon officials and defense contractors in the observation area had witnessed the entire confrontation from a distance, their shock and confusion evident as they struggled to process what they had just seen. Several high-ranking officers began moving toward the range area while others reached for their phones to report the incident to their respective chains of command. The demonstration that was supposed to showcase American military precision had suddenly become an international incident with potential criminal implications. Medical personnel arrived within minutes of Williams' emergency call, their response time reflecting the high priority placed on the demonstration and the important officials present. Paramedics immediately began treating Blackwood's fractured wrist while asking questions about the circumstances of his injury, their professional demeanor helping to calm the chaotic atmosphere. The colonel's continued accusations against Ellie were noted but treated as secondary to providing appropriate medical care. Military police arrived simultaneously with the medical team led by Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, an experienced investigator with extensive training in handling sensitive incidents involving senior officers. Rodriguez immediately began securing the scene and separating witnesses for individual interviews, recognizing that this situation would require careful documentation and thorough investigation. His professional approach helped reassure everyone present that justice would be served regardless of rank or politics. Ellie maintained her position exactly as instructed, her rifle secured and her demeanor remaining professional despite the enormous stress of the situation. Several witnesses approached to offer support and confirm her version of events, their statements providing crucial corroboration of Blackwood's aggressive behavior and assault. The consistency of their accounts made it clear that Ellie's defensive response had been both necessary and appropriate under the circumstances. Defense contractors present for the demonstration began calculating the potential impact of the incident on their weapons evaluation and future military contracts. The Barrett system that was supposed to be showcased had become evidence in a criminal investigation, potentially delaying procurement decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Several executives began making urgent phone calls to their corporate headquarters and legal departments, recognizing that they might become involved in subsequent proceedings. General Morrison took personal control of the initial investigation, recognizing that the high-profile nature of the incident required senior leadership involvement from the beginning. Her first interviews with key witnesses established a clear timeline of events and confirmed that Blackwood's behavior had been inappropriate and his assault on Ellie unprovoked. The general's involvement ensured that the investigation would be thorough and impartial regardless of Blackwood's rank and reputation. The irony of the situation was not lost on experienced military personnel present at the scene. Blackwood, who had spent his career preaching about discipline and proper conduct, had been brought down by his own inability to control his emotions and follow the standards he demanded from others. His assault on a subordinate and subsequent injury served as a powerful lesson about the consequences of abusing authority and the importance of maintaining professional standards under pressure. News of the incident began spreading throughout the military community within hours, carried by social media posts and unofficial communications from personnel who had witnessed the confrontation. The story of a young sergeant defending herself against an abusive colonel resonated strongly with service members who had experienced similar harassment, making Ellie an instant symbol of courage and integrity. The narrative was particularly powerful because it involved concrete actions rather than just accusations or complaints. General Morrison's decision to continue the Barrett demonstration despite the dramatic confrontation sent shockwaves through the assembled Pentagon officials and defense contractors who had expected the entire evaluation to be canceled indefinitely. Her announcement that Ellie would proceed with the shooting sequence as originally planned demonstrated remarkable confidence in both the young sergeant's abilities and the strength of her defensive actions against Blackwood's assault. The general's support represented a crucial vote of confidence that would prove instrumental in the investigation that was already beginning. Medical personnel had stabilized Blackwood's fractured wrist and prepared him for transport to the base hospital, his continued threats and allegations against Ellie becoming increasingly incoherent as pain medication took effect.
His removal from the range in an ambulance witnessed by dozens of senior military officials and defense industry executives marked the end of his influence over the weapons evaluation and Ellie's career. The dramatic reversal of fortune was complete. The person who had sought to destroy Ellie's opportunities was now facing potential criminal charges and the end of his own military service. Ellie approached the firing line with the same methodical precision that had characterized her preparation throughout the morning, her composure remarkable given the traumatic events that had just unfolded. The Barrett rifle showed no damage from its brief contact with the concrete, and her ballistic calculations remained valid despite the extended delay. Her ability to refocus on the technical requirements of precision shooting demonstrated the mental toughness that marked elite military marksmen and impressed the Pentagon officials who were now watching her every move. The target array remained as challenging as originally, with 8 targets positioned at distances ranging from 800 to 2,200 meters under conditions that would test both the weapon system and the shooter's capabilities. The final target, positioned at maximum effective range, was considered virtually impossible to hit under any circumstances, serving more as a technology demonstration than a realistic military requirement. Ellie's success or failure on this course would influence procurement decisions worth hundreds of millions of dollars and determine her own military future. Range safety protocols required additional verification following the earlier incident, with Master Sergeant Williams conducting a thorough inspection of all equipment and safety procedures before authorizing the demonstration to proceed. Her professional handling of the crisis had earned respect from everyone present, and her clearance of Ellie to continue shooting carried significant weight with the Pentagon officials who would ultimately judge the evaluation. The range safety officer's support provided crucial validation of Ellie's actions and professionalism. The first target, positioned at 800 meters, represented a relatively straightforward shot under normal circumstances, but the pressure of performing before such a critical audience added complexity that could affect even experienced marksmen. Ellie's approach to the shot was methodical and deliberate, following the precise routine she had developed through countless hours of practice. Her breathing was controlled, her position stable, and her focus complete as she acquired the target through the Barrett's advanced optical system. The crack of the .50 caliber round echoed across the range like thunder, the massive rifle's recoil absorbed by Ellie's perfect shooting position and technique. Spotters confirmed an immediate hit, the target clearly marked by the devastating impact of the heavy bullet. Murmurs of approval rippled through the observation area as Pentagon officials recognized that they were witnessing shooting of exceptional quality regardless of the earlier confrontation and its implications. Ellie's transition to the second target demonstrated the fluid efficiency that marked professional marksmen, her movements economical and precise as she adjusted for the different range and environmental conditions. The 1,000-meter shot required more complex ballistic calculations, accounting for wind drift and bullet drop that could easily result in a miss if not properly computed. Her success on this target confirmed that the earlier incident had not affected her technical capabilities or mental focus. The third and fourth targets, positioned at 1,200 and 1,400 meters respectively, represented shots that would challenge even experienced snipers under ideal conditions. Ellie's continued success on these increasingly difficult shots began drawing excited commentary from defense contractors who recognized that they were witnessing a demonstration of capabilities that exceeded their most optimistic projections. The Barrett system was performing flawlessly, but more importantly, the human operator was demonstrating skills that validated the military's investment in precision marksmanship training. By the fifth target, at 1,600 meters, even skeptical Pentagon officials were beginning to acknowledge that they were witnessing something exceptional. Ellie's consistency and precision under enormous pressure demonstrated not just technical skill but the kind of mental toughness that marked elite military operators. Her performance was validating the selection criteria that had brought her to this demonstration and proving that the Army's investment in developing female marksmen was producing tangible results. The sixth and seventh targets, positioned at 1,800 and 2,000 meters respectively, pushed both weapon and shooter to the limits of their capability. At these extreme ranges, environmental factors became critical, with wind variations and atmospheric conditions affecting bullet trajectory in complex ways that required real-time adjustments and expert judgment. Ellie's continued success demonstrated mastery of both the technical and intuitive aspects of precision shooting that separated true professionals from competent marksmen. General Morrison had positioned herself where she could observe both Ellie's shooting technique and the reactions of Pentagon officials and defense contractors, recognized that this demonstration was serving multiple purposes beyond simple weapons evaluation. The young sergeant's performance was not just showcasing the Barrett system's capabilities but also demonstrating the effectiveness of Army training programs and the potential of non-traditional military. Her success was validating investment strategies and training philosophies that would influence military development for years to come. The eighth and final target stood at 2,200 meters, positioned at the absolute maximum effective range of the Barrett system under ideal conditions, representing a shot that military experts considered virtually impossible for human achievement. The target itself was barely visible, even through high-powered optics, appearing as little more than a distant speck against the mountainous backdrop of Fort Braxton's testing range. Environmental factors at this extreme distance became exponentially more complex, with wind variations, air density changes, and bullet flight time creating variables that challenged even the most sophisticated ballistic computers. Pentagon officials and defense contractors had fallen completely silent as they recognized the magnitude of what Ellie was attempting. The shot represented the theoretical limit of both human capability and weapon system performance, so the technology demonstrated a realistic military requirement. Previous testing had shown that even experienced marksmen succeeded on similar shots less than 10 under laboratory conditions. And the pressure of performing before such a critical audience added complexity that could easily result in failure. Ellie approached the final shot with the same methodical precision that had kept Kursichu comparing. A true compact, certain the true compact, such an extreme. Nenchalis poised and enforced an exterior situ compact, situ enforce situ compact, these and rats situ compact. Her preparation routine extended longer than previous shots, with multiple wind readings and ballistic calculations to account for the extended bullet flight time and the accumulated effects of environmental variables over the massive distance. The Barrett's advanced ballistic computer was operating at the limits of its programming, providing guidance that pushed both hardware and software to their maximum capabilities. The mathematical complexity of the shot was staggering, requiring calculations that accounted for bullet drop of over 40 feet, wind drop potential of several meters, and flight time exceeding 3 seconds, during which environmental conditions could change significantly. Traditional sniper training emphasized shots under 1,000 meters where environmental factors were manageable, and success rates remained high. What Ellie was attempting represented a quantum leap in difficulty that challenged fundamental assumptions about human precision shooting capabilities. General Morrison had positioned herself where she could observe both Ellie's technique and the reactions of pals were beginning to understand that they might be witnessing military history in the making. The general's own extensive combat experience gave her unique appreciation for the difficulty of what Ellie was attempting, and her visible tension reflected the enormous stakes riding on a single shot. Success would validate your weapons development and training investment, while failure could undermine confidence in both the Barrett system and advanced marksmanship programs. Defense contractors representing competing weapon systems watched with mixed emotions, recognizing that Ellie's success could eliminate their own products from consideration for future military contracts. The financial implications were staggering, with hundreds of millions of dollars in potential revenue hanging in the balance of a single bullet's trajectory. Several executive phones ready to contact corporate headquarters immediately following the shot, regardless of its outcome. Ellie's final preparation included a detailed study of environmental conditions that had developed during the extended demonstration, with wind patterns and atmosphere, the pressure having shifted subtly since her earlier calculations. The Barrett's advanced weather monitoring system provided real-time data, but interpreting that information for such an extreme shock required intuitive understanding that came only from years of experience and natural talent. Her adjustments were minimal but critical, representing the difference between success and failure at maximum range. The moment of truth erupted as Ellie settled into her final shooting position, her breathing controlled and her focus absolute despite the enormous pressure surrounding the shot. The Barrett's scope revealed the distant target as barely more than a dot, requiring perfect alignment and flawless execution to achieve a hit. Her trigger control would need to be absolutely precise, with any deviation in timing or potentially sending the massive bullet several meters off target at such extreme range. The crack of the .50 caliber round seemed to echo forever. Across the vast range, the sound reverberating off distant mountains while everyone present held their breath during the bullet's 3-second flat time. The projectile's trajectory was invisible to observers, creating an agonizing wait as spotters focused their optics on the distant target. Time seemed suspended as the physics of long-range ballistics played out over more than 2 kilometers of Wyoming wilderness. The spotter's confirmation of a direct hit sent shockwave through the assembled audience, with Pentagon officials and defense contractors struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Applause erupted spontaneously from military personnel who recognized the historic nature of Ellie's achievement, while several defense industry executives immediately began making urgent phone calls to report the demonstration's outcome to their corporate leadership. The impossible had become reality through a combination of advanced technology and exceptional human skill. General Morrison's reaction was immediate and decisive, recognizing that Ellie's performance had exceeded all expectations and validated the Army's investment in both the Barrett system and advanced marksmanship training. Her public congratulations carried enormous weight with Pentagon officials who would ultimately decide procurement priorities and budget allocations. The general's support also provided crucial protection for Ellie during the investigation of Blackwood's conduct that would inevitably follow.
The formal investigation into Colonel Blackwood's conduct began within hours of his removal from the demonstration, led by Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the Army's senior investigator for cases involving high-ranking officers. Mitchell's reputation for thoroughness and impartiality made her the obvious choice for such a sensitive case, and her immediate access to all personnel and evidence ensured that the investigation would proceed quickly and comprehensively. The high-profile nature of the incident, combined with the Pentagon officials who had witnessed Blackwood's assault, made a cover-up impossible and demanded complete transparency. Initial interviews with range personnel and demonstration witnesses produced remarkably consistent accounts of Blackwood's escalating harassment and unprovoked assault on Ellie. Master Sergeant Williams provided particularly damaging testimony about the colonel's pattern of inappropriate behavior and his obvious attempts to sabotage the demonstration for personal rather than professional reasons. Her documentation of safety protocols and equipment inspections proved that Blackwood's technical objections were completely without merit, exposing the fabricated nature of his accusations. The investigation took a dramatic turn when military police discovered evidence of Blackwood's financial relationships with defense contractors competing against the Barrett system for military adoption. Bank records revealed substantial payments disguised as consulting fees, while email communications documented explicit agreements to provide negative evaluations in exchange for continued compensation. The corruption scandal expanded far beyond the assault charges, potentially involving multiple officers and millions of dollars in fraudulent procurement decisions. Pentagon investigators joined the military police investigation as the scope of Blackwood's misconduct became apparent, with federal authorities taking interest in potential violations of defense contracting regulations and corruption statutes. The Barrett demonstration incident had exposed a network of illegal activities that threatened the integrity of military procurement processes and raised questions about other weapons evaluations that Blackwood had influenced. What had begun as a simple assault case was rapidly evolving into a major federal investigation. Ellie's role in the investigation was primarily as a victim and witness, but her credibility and professionalism throughout the process impressed investigators and reinforced the strength of the case against Blackwood. Her detailed documentation of months of harassment provided crucial context for understanding the colonel's motivations and pattern of behavior. Several other soldiers came forward with similar stories of harassment and retaliation, painting a picture of systematic abuse that had been hidden by Blackwood's rank and reputation. General Morrison's support for Ellie throughout the investigation process was both personally meaningful and professionally crucial, providing protection against potential retaliation from Blackwood's allies within the military hierarchy. The general's public statements about Ellie's exceptional performance and professionalism helped counter any attempts to blame the victim or minimize the severity of Blackwood's misconduct. Her influence within Pentagon circles ensured that the investigation would proceed without interference from corrupt officials. Defense contractors implicated in the corruption scandal faced immediate suspension from government contracting opportunities while federal investigators examined their relationships with military procurement officials. Several companies were forced to halt production of competing weapon systems and recall their bids for military contracts, creating ripple effects throughout the defense industry. The financial impact extended far beyond the immediate participants, affecting shareholders, employees, and subcontractors throughout the military-industrial complex. Media attention to the case intensified as details of both the dramatic demonstration and the underlying corruption emerged through official statements and leaked information. Ellie's story resonated strongly with both military and civilian audiences, representing triumph over adversity and the importance of standing up to abuse regardless of personal cost. Her achievement in completing the impossible shot despite enormous pressure became a symbol of American military excellence and individual courage. The military justice system moved quickly to address the charges against Blackwood, with his court-martial scheduled within weeks of the incident, rather than the months typically required for complex cases. The overwhelming evidence and high-profile nature of the case made delay impossible, while Blackwood's continued threats against witnesses created urgency for resolution. His military career was effectively over regardless of the trial's outcome, with his security clearance revoked and all access to classified information permanently terminated. Congressional hearings were announced to examine the broader implications of the corruption scandal and its impact on military procurement processes, with Ellie scheduled to testify about her experiences and the systemic problems that had enabled Blackwood's misconduct. Her testimony would provide crucial insight into the culture of harassment and retaliation that had protected corrupt officials while threatening honest soldiers who attempted to report problems through proper channels. The Barrett rifle system received immediate approval for military adoption following Ellie's demonstration, with Pentagon officials recognizing that both the weapon and the shooter had exceeded all performance expectations. Production contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars were awarded within days, representing validation of the technology and the training programs that had produced such exceptional results. Ellie's achievement had influenced procurement decisions that would shape American military capabilities for decades. Recognition and awards for Ellie's courage and exceptional performance began flowing from multiple sources, including military leadership, veterans organizations, and civilian groups supporting military personnel. Her story had transcended the immediate circumstances to become a powerful example of integrity and excellence under pressure. The young sergeant from Wyoming had become a national symbol of American military values and the importance of standing up for what's right regardless of personal cost. Colonel Blackwood's court-martial became one of the most closely watched military justice proceedings in recent history, attracting national media attention and highlighting systemic problems within military procurement and personnel management systems. The trial was conducted with full transparency, allowing public scrutiny of evidence that revealed the depth of corruption and abuse that had been hidden within seemingly legitimate military operations. Blackwood's defense team struggled to counter overwhelming evidence of assault, harassment, and financial corruption that painted a picture of systematic misconduct spanning several years. The prosecution's case was devastating in its thoroughness, presenting documented evidence of Blackwood's assault on Ellie, his pattern of harassment against multiple soldiers, and his illegal financial relationships with defense contractors. Bank records showed payments totaling over $200,000 in exchange for favorable evaluations and insider information about competing weapon systems. Email communications revealed explicit discussions about sabotaging demonstrations and eliminating personnel who threatened his corrupt arrangements. Ellie's testimony was particularly compelling, delivered with the same calm professionalism that had characterized her performance throughout the Barrett demonstration. Her detailed account of months of harassment and the final assault provided crucial context for understanding Blackwood's motivations and the systematic nature of his misconduct. Defense attorneys' attempts to portray her as an unreliable witness or suggest that she had provoked the confrontation backfired spectacularly, only reinforcing her credibility and courage. The verdict was unanimous and swift, with the military jury finding Blackwood guilty on all charges including assault, conduct unbecoming an officer, corruption and violation of procurement regulations. His sentence included dismissal from military service, forfeiture of all benefits and retirement pay, and federal prison time for the corruption charges. The harshness of the sentence reflected both the severity of his crimes and the military's determination to send a clear message about the consequences of such misconduct. Congressional hearings following the court-martial resulted in significant reforms to military procurement processes and personnel protection procedures, with new oversight mechanisms designed to prevent similar corruption and better protect whistleblowers from retaliation. Ellie's testimony before Congress was praised for its clarity and insight into systemic problems that had enabled Blackwood's misconduct. Her recommendations for improved reporting procedures and accountability measures were incorporated into new military regulations. The defense contracting companies involved in the corruption scandal faced severe consequences, including permanent debarment from government contracts, criminal charges against executives, and civil penalties totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. Several companies declared bankruptcy as a result of the scandal, while others were forced to restructure completely under new management. The industry-wide impact served as a powerful deterrent against future corruption and reinforced the importance of ethical business practices in defense contracting. Ellie's military career flourished following her vindication and the recognition of her exceptional performance during the Barrett demonstration. She was selected for immediate advancement to the Army's most elite sniper programs and received multiple commendations for her courage and professionalism. Her achievement became a recruiting tool for attracting high-quality personnel to precision marksmanship programs and demonstrated the value of investing in non-traditional military talent. The Barrett rifle system's adoption based on Ellie's demonstration led to significant improvements in American military sniper capabilities, with the weapon system proving highly. Production contracts created thousands of jobs and strengthened America's defense industrial base while providing soldiers with superior equipment for protecting. Ellie's role in validating the system earned her recognition as a key contributor to American military modernization efforts. Media coverage of Ellie's story continued long after the court-martial concluded, her experience becoming the subject of documentaries, books, and academic studies examining military culture and the importance of individual courage in confronting institutional problems. Her story resonated particularly strongly with women in military service, providing inspiration and validation for those facing similar challenges in male-dominated environments. Educational military academies incorporated her experience into their curriculum as an example of proper conduct under pressure and the importance of maintaining professional standards regardless of personal cost. Her example influenced training programs designed to develop moral courage alongside technical skills in future military leaders. The broader impact of Ellie's courage extended beyond military service, inspiring civilian organizations to examine their own cultures and procedures for preventing harassment and protecting individuals who report misconduct. Her story became a powerful example of how actions can expose and correct systems, even when those problems are protected by powerful interests and institutional resistance to change. Recognition of Ellie's achievement continued to grow over time, with her name becoming synonymous with excellence under pressure and moral courage in the face of adversity. The young sergeant from Wyoming had not only achieved the impossible shot that demonstrated American military capabilities, but had also struck a blow against corruption that strengthened the entire defense establishment. Her legacy would inspire future generations of soldiers to maintain the highest standards of integrity and performance regardless of the challenges they might face. 5 years after the dramatic events at Fort Braxton, Sergeant Ellie Ross had become Master Sergeant Ellie Ross, serving as the senior instructor at the Army's premier sniper school and widely recognized as one of the most accomplished marksmen in American military history. Her impossible shot during the demonstration had been studied and analyzed by ballistics experts worldwide, with the techniques and calculations she employed becoming standard curriculum for advanced precision shooting programs. The young woman from Wyoming who had faced down a corrupt colonel had evolved into a leader whose influence extended far beyond the shooting range. The Mayo's 107A1 rifle system that Ellie had demonstrated so effectively became the backbone of American military sniper operations, with her performance surgeons the gold standard for evaluating both equipment and personnel. Combat deployments in multiple theaters validated the weapon's capabilities and proved the value of the procurement series that her demonstration had influenced. Hundreds of successful military operations could trace their origins back to that single morning when Ellie had proven that American technology and training could achieve the Colonel Blackwood's imprisonment and disgrace had become a cautionary tale studied throughout military leadership courses, serving as a powerful example of how corruption and abuse of power inevitably lead to destruction. His downfall had triggered comprehensive reforms that strengthened military procurement processes and created new protections for personnel reporting misconduct. The network of corruption he had represented was systematically dismantled, with dozens of officials and contractors facing criminal charges and career-ending consequences. Congressional reform inspired by Ellie's testimony had transformed military procurement oversight, creating new transparency requirements and accountability measures that prevented the kind of systematic corruption that Blackwood had operated. Independent oversight boards now monitored major weapons evaluations, while new whistleblower protections encouraged personnel to report problems without fear of retaliation. The changes had saved taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars while ensuring that American soldiers received the best possible equipment. Ellie's story had become a powerful recruiting tool for attracting high-quality personnel to military service, particularly women and individuals from non-traditional backgrounds who might not have previously considered military careers. Her example demonstrated that excellence and integrity were more important than connections or politics in determining military success. Recruitment numbers for precision marksmanship programs had increased dramatically, with many candidates citing Ellie's story as their inspiration for pursuing military service. Educational institutions worldwide had incorporated Ellie's experience into their curricula as a case study in leadership ethics and the importance of standing up for principles regardless of personal cost. Business schools analyzed her decision-making under pressure, while ethics courses examined the moral courage required to confront corruption and abuse. Her story had transcended military circles to become a universal example of how individual actions could create positive change even in the most challenging circumstances. The defense contracting industry had implemented comprehensive ethics and compliance programs following the scandals where it's exposed, recognizing that their long-term success depended on maintaining public trust and delivering genuine value to military customers. New industry standards for ethical conduct and transparency had emerged from the wreckage of corrupt practices, creating a more competitive and honest marketplace for defense technologies. Media coverage of Ellie's achievement had evolved from news reports to documentary films, books, and academic studies that examined the broader implications of her story for American society and military culture. Her experience had become a touchstone for discussions about gender equality, institutional reform, and the power of individual courage to overcome systemic problems. The Shy Ranch girl from Wyoming had become an international symbol of American values and military excellence. Veterans organizations had embraced Ellie as a representative of the best qualities of American military service, using her story to advocate for improved support and recognition for all veterans. Her experience highlighted the importance of protecting military personnel from harassment and retaliation while ensuring that their service contributions were properly recognized and rewarded.
Her ongoing advocate for veteran issues had helped secure improved benefits and support programs for countless former service members. The technological advances demonstrated during Ellie's performance had spurred continued innovation in precision shooting systems, with American defense companies maintaining their leadership in developing cutting-edge sniper technologies. International allies had adopted similar weapons based on the capabilities Ellie had demonstrated, strengthening collectivities as reinforcing America's role as a leader in military technology development. Training programs inspired by Ellie's techniques and mental approach had been implemented throughout American and Allied forces, improving the performance and effectiveness of precision shooters worldwide. Her emphasis on mental disciplines, technical precision, and moral courage had become foundational elements of modern sniper training. The standard she had established continued to challenge new generations of marksmen to achieve ever higher levels of excellence. As Ellie stood on the same range where she had achieved the impossible shot years earlier, now training the next generation of elite marksmen, she reflected on how a single moment of courage had changed not just her own life but influenced American military capabilities for years to come. The shy young woman who had refused to back down to a corrupt colonel had become a leader whose impact would endure long after her own services ended. Her legacy was measured not just in the precision of her shooting, but in the integrity and excellence she had inspired in countless others who followed her example. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications to miss any upload from us.